Okay, welcome. Hopefully we're going out live. Let's just give a minute to make sure that we are up and running. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, all good. I think yeah, perfect. Okay, we're up and running. So whilst people are joining day 4 of the Relabelling Reactivity Symposium, I'm just going to obviously thank everybody for their questions and participation, their kind comments. I've had lots of positive feedback about the information that's been shared. So on Tuesday, the first day of the symposium, I talked about the 5 key causes of reactivity and the contributing factors of reactivity. So genetics, the genetic part of reactivity, you know, a dog with a predisposed behavioral trait or desire or certain characteristic, or even a genetic, maybe the dog hasn't got the best genetics and might have a somewhat apprehensive temperament. And as a result of that, the dog displays reactive behavior. So genetics can often be a part and parcel of reactivity. Again, if the dog is of a certain breed type, or how, again, I discussed about how dogs were originally bred to be tools, and how they've now evolved into companion dogs. And along that timeline and that evolution of our relationship with them, nobody informed the dogs that they didn't have jobs to do. So that was part of it. The second part was about the physical entity. Is there a physical issue that could be going on that's contributing to your dog's reactivity, whether it be physical stimulation and outlets, or is there a physical issue going on with the dog? And both of those can definitely, excuse me, be an issue with reactivity or cause reactivity. Oh, excuse me, frog in my throat. The third entity was socialization. Talking about socialization and how in pivotal parts of our dog's development, certainly in the fear periods, in the early part of their development and then adolescence, reactivity can often be created to relate, then that can be caused by hormones and hormone surges and your dog getting into situations which they may not be able to necessarily emotionally deal with, and how that can disperse if handled correctly. But a very common pattern of reactivity starting from adolescence and that pivotal part of development and socialization. So education, another part of a contributing factor. Have we educated the particular dog that you have that has reactivity challenges with all the things that we need of them? How to behave in certain situations, how to behave with the fast moving thing, how to behave when another dog approaches them, etc., etc. Have we educated them about what we want of them? And the final part is relationship, and whether there's a trauma that has taken place, whether it be to the dog or yourself. And we heard yesterday from Lou Holmes about her experience with her dog Chip, who had gone through a very traumatic instance when he was a puppy, resulting in quite severe injuries, and how Lou used the medium of search and rescue to build his confidence up and ultimately become a phenomenal dog. So that was on Tuesday. We then spoke with Angela Watson, one of the members of the Relabelling Reactivity team, about learning to avoid avoidance, I should say. So hopefully that gave you some things to consider and to reframe things in your mind and start to build your confidence up. And yesterday we further talked about the things that you can do with your dogs to help them with reactivity. And Lou, obviously an expert in nose work and scent work, one of the things that she loves and is passionate about is helping owners with their dogs learn about scent work, get addicted to scent work and as an outlet for their dog. And as I said, she gave us insight into some of the things that, and some of the ways that it can be beneficial. So very graciously, I have with me Rachel, who is one of the members of the Relabelling Reactivity community, who's taken the time out of her busy day to come and obviously talk through her own reactivity journey with her dog Mac, and to share obviously her experience on the group. I'm just going to grab my headphones. 1 second, Rachel, bear with me. I've knocked those on the floor. That's better. There we go, back again. So first and foremost, how are you keeping, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, thank you, Kamal. Yeah,
excellent. It's good to see you. How's the puppy? How's the baby?
Yeah, she's a feisty little thing, but yeah, she's a lot of fun. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, you're enjoying her.
Yeah, loving her. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so great because she's been to a couple of little shows. How's she coped?
She's loved it to the point where I had to buy new fencing for the caravan because she was escaping and exploring a bit too much. But yeah, she's absolutely taken everything in her stride. She's really cool.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I love her brother. Brother's fantastic. He's so confident. So
Yes,
great.
yeah, that's Brie.
Yeah, really confident puppy. I mean, he waltzed in my place, like he owned it, like he'd been here all his life the first day, and he's so bold, which was lovely to see. And I think it gives you such an advantage, doesn't it, really? You know, especially as you've had a dog with some challenges, to have a dog with that level of confidence. It can, obviously there's things to be mindful of, but it's so great for you. I'm so happy for you. She looks a cracker.
Oh yeah, no, she is absolutely. She had we went for the massage yesterday, and she just was like on the couch, like, yeah, I own the place. Good. And I took Mac out, and she was like, I don't care, you know, you're just this is mine now. And she literally takes everything you throw at her in her stride. She's really happy little puppy. She's a cracker.
Brilliant. Oh, well, it's just great. So you mentioned Mac there. So Mac is your dog that you have had some reactivity challenges with.
Yes.
So tell people, share with people a little bit about Mac, who he is, and obviously where he came from, and the background.
So Mac was born in December 2019. He was bought allegedly from a farm by a family who'd apparently never had a dog before. They took him to one puppy class, and then lockdown 1 hit. And when he was 8 months old, he was pulling people over. He was violently sick. If you could hang on to him, it didn't matter if you put a halter or a head collar of some sort on, he would dig his claws on and destroy his face. And they recognised that they couldn't. They'd obviously tried very hard, but they recognised that he was too much dog for them. So he was surrendered to rescue, and I was actively looking for a young collie type to do agility with. Saw Mac on a Facebook page, went over and met him. He fell in love with Peggy Sue, the bitch that I've already got. So I took him home, slightly underestimating quite how much work I needed to do with him. I was prepared to do a lot of work, and I've always been a little bit, as long as they get on with the existing dog, you know. I'm lucky I've got friends who are very good behaviorists, and got a good local support network, as well as people like yourselves. And I thought, you know, pulling's easy, you know. He used to ride race horses for a living. I've ridden some of the very strongest horses in the country at the time. I can cope with strong animals. He was very, very hard work. And part of his pulling was fear bait. He was just frightened of everything. He'd missed all that socialization, all that learning about life, because, to be honest, March, April 2020, everything stopped, you know. And if you saw people, you ran the other way. And then coming from a home with no other dogs, all that, being able to learn other dog skills, you know, he just didn't have that. He was very adolescent, but also 12-week-old puppy going, but without the puppy privileges. And therefore got misunderstood by other dogs as well. And he had no recall. So he was a lot of dog to take on. And we've worked very hard, but bless his heart, he came second last week in the Dahl Rescue Agility Dog of the Year for Most Improved Rescue. And a lot of that was, I was so pleased. And that was
Rachel. You've worked so hard with him, you know.
I really have. People who saw him when I took him to puppy camp at 12 months old were like, he's lucky to have you. But actually, at heart, he's a lovely dog.
And he now. Sorry, on that note, I mean, fair play to the owners of realising actually, you know what, this is out of our pay grade, beyond our pay grade. You know, fair play to them, and because rehoming a dog is not an easy decision to make. I know that a lot of people rehome dogs for various reasons, but I would say in that instance, it's probably they had the dog at the forefront of their thought. You know, they were inexperienced dog owners with, like you say, a farm-bred border collie. In anybody's hands, that would have been a lot of dog. But to then have, you know, the thing that none of us could have anticipated, predicted, or foreseen, lockdown, when the world just went weird for a period of time, and that uncertainty, it was the perfect cocktail to create a problematic dog, irrespective of their experience. The fact that this was their first foray into dog ownership, I mean, bless their hearts. I mean, God almighty, that must have been an absolute nightmare for them. And as a result, like you say, you know, it fed into, and obviously you don't know where he came from. I mean, you don't know if there was a predisposition genetically to it. Who knows? But like you say, thankfully he found you or you found him. I just talk through people, you know, when you first took him on, what was that like? I mean, did you feel overwhelmed? Did you think, oh, do you know what, too much dog? Yeah.
At first I was like, oh, he'll be fine. You know, I've coped with strong race horses. This is only 20 kilos of dog, not 500 kilos of thoroughbred trying to pull me over. This will be fine. Actually, they got a much lower center of gravity. And he really at times was just in pure bolt mode. I mean, he just wanted to run, but you couldn't let him off lead because he had no recall. And freedom fields weren't really a thing. And of course, at the time when there were all the lockdowns, we're lucky that the woods round us are still quiet. But when nobody could drive, it was great because you only saw people that could walk there from the village. But once people started to be able to drive for exercise, they became busier than they've ever been before or since. Queued 30 deep in a car park that on a busy day now has 6. It was the first year of having him was very, very hard work and very, very trying. At puppy camp, Greg Derritt gave me some very sound and very stern advice about how to deal with him, which was a lot of that was following Susan Garrett's rough love. He lived in a halty, literally lived in a halty for months to acclimatize him to that. And once I could control his eyes, I could reward something. And once I could reward something, he could learn what I was asking. And until we got to that point, I had nothing with him. I had a dog who wanted to please, but had no idea. The first time I got a tug out and tried to play tug, he had no idea how to play tug. He wanted food, but he was too wired about everything. And I hand feed my dogs. I ditched the bowl years ago. But he would just snatch and go in, swallow. There was nothing there. There was no way for me to put a reinforcement program in for him and to be able to, because, and then I had nothing to reward. So, but once I had his eyes and I had something, and I had some tug with him and made that really big for him. Once I started to get that, I then was able to start to build a structure about this is what I want from you. And at heart, he really wants to please. So once he went, oh, you want this? Oh, okay, I'll do. Oh, and there we started on an upward trajectory. It's been a long, the recall, his arousal and awareness of other dogs. At one point, if there was a dog 200 yards away, I was in trouble if he was off lead. And it shrunk and it shrunk and it shrunk, and now it's 10, 15 meters. And at an agility show when he's working, we've been to KCI, we've been to Thames, all the really big shows where they don't put any fencing around the rings. There's just a bit of rope between you and dogs walking on harnesses, staring at the dog competing. And he's in work mode. He puts his little working blinkers on, and the fact that there's thousands of other dogs and he has to queue and all the rest of it, he's come such a long way.
Oh God! And I mean, you think back to when you first joined the course. I mean, I think I think that the big thing that again, please interject you, but I think your confidence had really taken a knocking at that point. I think that when you came, you were really transparent and you were vulnerable to say, I'm really struggling. And I think that also you'd obviously give you great advice, but also I think that you'd had some, negative stuff in your direction, which is always the case with people, and judgment, which can often make you feel.
Oh, you've gone mute.
There, that's better. Sorry, my phone's playing up. Was what thing that I think was very apparent was how, as I said, various things had knocked your confidence. And I think that's a real common thing when people have reactive dogs. And this is almost part of a PSA of, nobody asked to have a reactive dog or have reactivity challenges. It's not like Rachel set out and went, let me find a dog that gives me sleepless nights. And I think that all of us should be aware of, judging people that often are doing the best they can with the information and knowledge they have at that time and the skills that they have. And sometimes, Rachel was an experienced dog owner. It can be a lot, really. It can really feel like you've got this, almost tsunami of behavioral challenges, and you're just like, where the hell do I start? So I think that judgment is a big thing. We should be really shifting that and trying to be more empathetic and compassionate to people. And just be more understanding that people, as I said, are doing the best they can with the information and knowledge that they have. And like all of us, when they know better, they will do better, as they say. So what made you join Relabelling Reactivity then?
Like I say, I'd really plateaued, and I'd got into a habit of trying to avoid people on walks. So I've worked out the times of days when it was quieter in the woods, but not always quiet. And there had been incidents. At one point, there's quite a lot of sort of shooting type people around here, and you get a lot of people with their gun dog trained labs and things who will walk past with their dogs off lead, and those dogs are just behave, and they are very you've got a collie and they see a collie and they go, well, why, can you please just put your dog on a lead? Oh, well, my dog's fine, mine isn't. And my husband one day had asked the chap to put his dog on a lead. My husband is in his 70s, and this chap had threatened to pull him into the bushes and smack his face in because he'd asked him to put the dog on the lead to stop it coming up to Mac. And we'd really, as a partnership, we'd plateaued, and I knew I needed some more advice. And actually, I think I said once, I did a little thing on the Facebook where I felt like I'd let him down because I was like, is this what I'm stuck with now? Am I stuck with a dog? Is this, yes, we've come a long way, but is this all I'm ever going to get? And actually being able to go, do you know what? We've come a long way. We've made massive improvement. And okay, I might have to be careful, especially around black labs, black cockers, other large dogs, small dogs, other dogs, and actually some people aren't always going to be empathetic towards me. Some people are just going to be, well, you should train your dog better. And they don't want to care about your journey. Do you know what? Just don't engage with them. For me, a lot of that stuff is what I've learned from training with you, Kamal, is that I can still make small incremental improvements, and I can see even from the year or so, over a year ago that we joined, Mac has continued to make very small improvements. But actually a lot of the improvements have come because I've gone, do you know what? This is me and my dog. I'm going to advocate for him when it's appropriate, and I'm not going to react back because I didn't always take it particularly kindly when some bloke let his dog off and let it run up Mac's backside and start sniffing his backside right behind him. I was not particularly calm. So some of it is about, for me, learning about how to deal with myself in those situations, because when I get angry, the dog senses and the dog escalates as well. They do read the situation.
And the other thing I'd say, and again, please, if I'm off the mark here, please by all means say, but I think the beauty of the group is it's a safe space where if you do want to come out and have a good old rant about the person that was really a bit of twat to you, you can do so, get it off your chest, and you can do that in a space where people will allow you that grace to go, you know what, we've all been there. You can have your little rah moment, and it allows you then to go, okay, I've done that now, and now I can move forward. Are you with me? And I think that's such a powerful thing to have in your corner, so to speak, because I think often, when you don't have that, it internalizes, the next time
it festers.
It festers. And then it eats you inside. And before you know it, you're going out there primed, almost like looking for a fist fight, as it were. That's the energy you're projecting. So just having, this community around you, and obviously people like, that can empathize and understand that you can have that safe space. And the other thing, which, I would say is a testament to people within the community, is celebrating the smaller successes. And I think you downplay how far you've come, and when you say, oh, you've made incremental, I mean, I would call them more than incremental. I mean, like you've done a phenomenal job with him, and considering what you had, I think you're playing yourself a little bit short there. Or playing your successes a bit small, because it's been like you've turned that dog around. I mean, when you have a dog that you came with a lot of stuff, and as I said, your confidence was at an all-time low. and you've turned it around and you've got yourself to a place where this dog can be in an agility environment. I mean, an agility environment is probably about as challenging as you're going to ever get for a dog like Mac. You know, that's pretty extreme. And you can go with confidence, knowing that you've put the work in. It's just absolutely phenomenal, you know. And I think that the beauty of the group is, yes, what you did the other week was phenomenal. I mean, that's a massive, massive notch on your bedpost, so to speak. But it's all the little wins along the way that the group is the perfect place. Like, you know, he walked past the black dog. Everybody's like, yeah, go Rachel. And it might sound cliche, but you go that when you're on that journey of trying to build your confidence back up, you need people around you that are going to say, fantastic, Rachel, you know, and not from a place of being, I suppose, you know, a bit condescending, but genuinely like, oh my God, I've been in your position. I absolutely know, you know, what you're going through, and what just the fact that he ignored the black dog should be like a fanfare moment, really. I think that's the beauty of the group. So, I mean, so moving forward, what would your advice be to people that maybe have a dog currently and are where you were with Mac, say 18 months ago? What would your words of advice be?
Join the group. It really, seriously, it's one of those. Yes, I was an experienced dog owner. I've, you know, had a lot of help and support from other trainers, but actually, in a lot of ways, the resources that come with the group are really, really good. But like you say, having that group behind you to go, do you know what, he walked past a cyclist today, or he didn't react to a car, or he didn't, it can seem really small to somebody else, to everyone else, but in the group, everyone understands, everyone is there, they've got your back. And that, once you've got confidence, you project to your dog that actually it's not that bad, mate. We can get on with this. And having a really good positive reinforcement, it's positive reinforcement for us as well. It's not just for the dog, it's for us, that we're getting good positive reinforcement, and not in a lesson situation where you go there and you can come home going, oh, the lesson was great, but sometimes they don't. You know, an in-person lesson, you don't always achieve what you thought you were going to achieve at that lesson, and that can be deflating. Whereas within the group, if you've had a really bad day, you can vent. If you've had a really good day, if you're just having a mediocre day, but actually just being able to see other people's wins, other people's frustrations, makes you feel it. I don't want to say normalizes it, but it kind of does. You don't feel so isolated.
Absolutely. I think that's the key of any, certainly the Relabelling Reactivity community, is that it's their camaraderie, and it's so genuine. You know, like sometimes, you know, it really does. And I know it's cliche, because obviously when I created the group, I hoped that would be, you know, I didn't, if I'm honest, I don't even know if that was, I just thought it would be a place where people can share their progress and post their videos, but it just grew into so much more. It's literally like a little family, you know, and how supportive everybody is, how on board, how they celebrate their successes and are there as a shoulder to cry on, for me, is the real magic of the group. And it was people like yourself, Rachel, that contribute and are passing the baton on for people that have, you know, obviously you're further down that process and that journey. You can assure people that are starting out or coming to the community to say, look, I know what you're going through. I've been there. Hang in there. You're going to be okay. And sometimes that's all that you need, isn't it, to keep yourself going another day and go, okay, you know, I've had a disaster today on a dog walk. I've got a space I can vent, and then everybody's going to rally around and go, look, you can do it. I've been there. I know exactly, you know, don't be too tough on yourself, pick it up. And sometimes you just need that support system around you, you know? So in terms of, in your experience with owning a reactivity, a dog with reactivity challenges, well, I always say to people, it opens, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as something which, you know, reduces the size of your world, and which I think a lot of people fall in the trap into, which is obviously what you did. What would you now, as I said, you know, coming through the other side, what would be the thing that you would say, your learning experience, that probably surprised you the most?
Oh, I don't know, because I mean, Mac is not the first reactive dog I've had, and probably won't be the last, because I do like to adopt. And over the years, I mean, my very first one, she opened up the doors where I went to a dog training, and I've ended up with a house. I inherited a house through a friend I met from dog training, and then we closed in again, and we've opened and we've closed. But try to keep those doors open. Try to find a way of keeping the doors open, and you might not be able to go to the nearest big town centre and walk through the middle of that without being completely overwhelmed, but you can find a medium, and there are people out there who will help and support. I mean, being able to reach out to my friends and go, actually, what I need from you, I need my dog to socialise, but actually what I really need from you is to do some parallel walking in the field. And can you bring that dog today and not that one? Or can you, and being able to go to my friends and have really specific, what we need at the moment is this exercise. And so having that support from all the resources that come with it, because that's where I think I'd floundered a bit in that, yes, we could build a relationship, and yes, we could, but I wasn't sure how to progress it. Whereas with the resources that came through doing Relabelling Reactivity, I was like, right, now I specifically need to do this, and I need to be looking at this, and I need to, in order to help him, can you bring your collie today? Can you bring your Romanian rescue? Can you bring these other dogs?
Absolutely. And you know what I thought was the most, when I read your post you posted about Brie, which is Rachel's puppy, and I was like, wow, you did, I can't remember what you posted now, but you posted something, and I was like, my God, you're so on the ball with what you're wanting from that dog and your intention. And I was like, it was the decision-making process. It was something to do with exposing her to other dogs and how you introduced her to other dogs. And I was like, wow, and that was like the aha moment for me. And the way in which I teach is not to say to people, right, Rachel, do this, come back next week, I'll give you the next piece of the puzzle. Is to say to people, it's that saying, give a man a fish, or eat for a day, give him the means to fish, or eat for life. And that's definitely the way. And when I looked at how you'd grown as a trainer, and even like watching you train both your dogs with your various things that you've done when you've done other courses, it's like you're so much more aware now of the nuances that make such a difference, which to me is the beauty of really Mac. If Mac did all that, really, if you really analyze it, you go, if it wasn't for Mac, none of this would have happened. That level of commitment, and that's the thing I'd say to anybody that has a dog with reactivity challenges. If you choose to embrace the challenge, which obviously Rachel did, and like she said, she'll probably do it again, because it's in the sixth way you get addicted to the process. There is so much to gain from it, isn't there, Rachel? It really is.
There
it's
is.
not easy, but it's so rewarding when you get it right, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, it really is. I used to have a reputation for riding the nutcases on the yard when I worked with racehorses, and reactive dogs are a little bit the same, but it's a slightly different. When you're on a horse, you have a feel, and I'm starting to develop that feel for the dogs. I'm reading dogs differently to the way I did 18 months ago. I thought I knew dogs, but I'm really learning to read them a lot. And every dog is different. They really are. I mean, the fact I've got 3 collies at the moment, I've had a German Shepherd cross Husky, a German Shepherd cross Cocker Spaniel. Had some interesting mixes over the years, and they've all taught me something. But now I'm really looking and reading the nuances that they give off in a hopefully better.
What would you say then? What would you say is your biggest success, or inverted commas? It doesn't have to literally be a win, but what is your biggest win that you've had with MAP that you'd like to share with people? It doesn't have to be a rosette. I mean, any win.
No, because the rosette is easy. I mean, getting him onto the podium for a brief time at grand finals last year was just something else. But actually, my biggest win is just, do you know what? Actually, it's probably that he's accepted Brie so well. That to me is, because he was the worry. Getting a puppy, he was the worry.
You were worried going into it,
Yes, I was, and we don't have the space in the setup. To they have to get on with existing dogs.
That wasn't the reason that it's gone. So it wasn't fluke. You made
no.
That was intentional on your part, and to me, that's the win. Like as I said, I can look at you, how far you've grown, and how the decision making that you made to bring her into the house, even picking her as a character, it was so intentional. It was so intentional, and it was just like, oh my God, what a difference in growth. So to me, that's definitely the win. I was interesting to hear that. Probably it's a similar thing for you. So really, really interesting. So if anybody has any questions for Rachel, feel free to post them on the comments. I don't want to keep it too long, so by all means, feel free to. There we go. I'm back again. Keeps on going to my headphone. I don't know why it does that. But yeah, so if you have comments or questions for Rachel, by all means ask. So just to bring that sort of to the main points from that conversation, reactivity in dogs, or dog reactivity, is often labeled and attached to people as a shroud of shame, and to me it should be a cloak of to be championed, as it were, not to stay in that place of owning a dog with challenges, but to use those challenges as a springboard for greater things, and to use it to develop your skill set as a dog owner and as a dog trainer, to develop the dog and ultimately allow them to shine in whatever way that you deem appropriate and that you define, whether that is success in an agility arena, as you heard from Rachel, or just being able to take your dog into a public situation and know that they're going to respond and act in a way that you're proud of. And that, you know, when like Angela was talked about her dog Harry, people couldn't tell, people didn't know that he had challenges, and to me that is the ultimate win. And I think that's when people go, what, this dog, this is your reactive dog, almost like, no, you must have another dog. To me, that's what it's all about. So using your dog's reactivity journey as a way to enhance your relationship and your dog ownership and become a more informed dog owner, to me, is the path that we should be walking and attempting to follow. And, you know, Rachel's talking the talk and walking the walk. So I'm just going to read a couple of comments here. So Val said, my good friend Val said, I really appreciate Rachel's thoughts. She's on the ball. Yes, definitely. And Val doesn't give compliments lightly. So definitely the case. Follow my lead canine said, my journey sounds very similar to Rachel's. Only difference is I've had him from a pup, but a lockdown pup. If he'd been my first, he'd definitely been my last, but he's made me a trainer. I couldn't love him more. That's the thing. So many people, I want them to sort of get that message, because I think there's, as I said, there's a lot of stigma and judgment attached to reactivity. And certainly I would say in dog sports, you know, there can be a real, a lot of judgment when you have a dog that doesn't conform or behaves in a way that's slightly inappropriate, shall we say. And obviously social media is a powerful tool that can be used for good, but often it can be quite damaging on people's confidence. So I think, you know, that's something to just talk about collectively. We should all be aware of, you know, what we put out there, because as I said, often people are doing the best they can. And rather than operate from a place of judgment, you know, be more open to helping them and offer them suggestions. And I think that's the way we will all move forward. You know, certainly, you know, as I said, in social media has a lot of good to it, and it can be used for a lot of good, but sometimes it can be it can create a lot of pressure, I suppose is the way to put it. So if anybody else has any questions about reactivity, feel free to ask. Rachel, I do appreciate you coming on board. I'll love you and leave you. I really do appreciate you. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's been great. You know, you're an absolute gem. You're an asset to the community. So I love you and leave you.
Thank you.
Take care, Rachel.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
So, you know, really, really great to hear from Rachel and have her you know, join and give her insight into living, breathing, and dealing with a dog that has reactivity challenges and moving forward from it. The thing that I really wanted to draw everybody's attention to is it's not about creating the perfect dog, and that's something that really we should be shifting away from. It isn't about having a perfect dog. It's having a dog that's perfect to you, and you define your relationship with your dog. It isn't for anybody else to quantify or to decide for you. There is always contributing factors, or competing factors. There's the dog, there's you, and the society, and they all have a certain level of say, but ultimately it's for you to decide if your choices are going to be the ones that you want for your dog. And yes, in certain situations we need to be mindful of other members of the public, etc., etc. but that's for you to define how you choose to manage that. It doesn't have to be that your dog is perfect. If your dog doesn't like people, but yet you've got enough control to take them in an environment where there's lots of people, advocate for them, so that they don't have people invading their personal space, so that you can keep them safe, allow them to navigate life and to live their best life, but don't be afraid to advocate for them. It doesn't mean because the dog is in society, it means that everybody has to have license to interact with them. One of my dogs, Swipe, very, very sound dog, totally indifferent to people. He would be thrown, I would probably be the best way of describing it, if somebody tried to interact with him. He doesn't see people, he's not interested in people, he's a giant schnauzer, he's largely indifferent to them. So if you made attempts to interact with him, he would probably either blank you, and if you came up to him, he would probably get mildly concerned as to why is this strange person talking to me. But yet he's not a dog that I'm concerned about at all in taking public situations. And in that instance, I just tell people he probably will ignore you, so you can try and talk to him, but I suspect he'll not take any notice. And I advocate for him in that sense. So it's always important that you define your relationship with your dog. So let's have a look at some of the questions. So Caroline said, when is it too late to resolve a reactivity situation? I would say it's never too late. You've got to be realistic about the timeline. So if your dog has been rehearsing a behavior, it doesn't matter the behavior, for a period of time. You've got to allow the same time or a certain amount of time to resolve it. But then it doesn't mean you can't improve it. It doesn't have to be that you're going to get it perfect, but you're looking for improving the behavior and making some change. Rachel has been with the community as a sister about a year now, I think, maybe a bit longer. And she'd obviously, as she said, plateaued off, but she wasn't afraid to, see if she can push herself out of her comfort zone and to improve continually. And obviously, as she said, there's still things that Matt doesn't like. That's fine. They're manageable. She can deal with those. Now that list of management is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So never too late. Just be realistic about the expectations and the timeline and put the work in. It's the big thing. Okay, and the second part, is it too late? And will that limit the potential success? Not necessarily. Again, it's down to you as the owner to define what is success to you. If you had a dog that had a history of having issues with, say, black dogs, for example, and you can get them where they can be tolerant, they may not never like them and they may not ever gravitate to them, but they can tolerate them, they can be around them and be safe. That would be, to me, be a realistic outcome, especially if they've had a lot of negative experiences with, for example, black dogs. That's a really classic example. So it's about saying to them, okay, they may not love them, but they can be around them and not be a problem. So again, it's about setting realistic expectations. Okay. Sue Baker, I think you lose your confidence more with a reactive dog now than possibly 15 years ago due to legislation and it being that you can be troubled just by someone feeling threatened. Absolutely. So I would say, even going back further, so I would say that the Dangerous Dog Act 91, I think it came out, was a massive, massive, massive impact on society and how they perceived dogs, responded to dogs' behavior, and also how they perceived dogs should behave in public. That was when there was the introduced legislation to govern certain breeds, specifically pit bulls, and dogs of that type. And there was, front page news was, children with massive stitches that had been attacked by dogs biting and, lunging on pictures of that. And that, I think, created a subliminal feeling of fear and apprehension. And that then has trickled down over time with further legislation where, we dog owners are under a level of pressure to conform and to have dogs that are perfect or well behaved or not to offend people. And I think that's where that creates apprehension and fear in owners. How do you combat that? You be responsible for your dog. I mean, I have a lot of dogs. I always say, to people, I'm responsible for my dog. I can't necessarily affect what happens to your dog. I can only take account for my dog. I make sure that I do the best I can. I advocate for them. I don't put them in situations, ideally, that I feel isn't appropriate for the dog. And I try to be courteous to others within reason as much as I can, is humanly possible. And then obviously, educate your dog, train them, put the work in, get that connection so that you can allow them to live a fuller life. But hopefully that gives you some food for thought. But very definitely, I would agree with you, Sue, on that. So, do you recommend a reactive dog wearing a muzzle? I'm finding it difficult to find a muzzle for my French bulldog. He has nipped my leg a couple of times a couple of weeks ago when he got a fright with a dog appearing suddenly. Yes, definitely. I think muzzles are a fantastic tool to have in your armory to give you confidence. So if you're then, given what the circumstances that you just shared, if you're now going forward and you're a bit apprehensive that he's going to potentially nip you, to alleviate that as part of the added baggage, definitely muzzle train him. So the muzzles that I love are made by the Muzzle Movement. They're tailor-made. The company is phenomenal. I did a podcast with Clara Houston, the founder of the Muzzle Movement, which, again, if you have the time, go and have a look at that on my YouTube page. Alternatively, reach out to them. They are fantastic. They cater a lot specifically for bull breed types. They do a lot with XL bullies when the legislation came in governing them. But they are a phenomenal company, and they are definitely worth contacting and liaising with if you have a dog with a specific head shape and then you want support with finding the right muzzle. Definitely reach out to them. But definitely, it just gives people have a real stigma about muzzles in that they perceive them as almost, again, a label, but that's in our head. If it keeps you safe, it keeps the dog safe, and it gives you a bit of confidence, my advice is to absolutely use one. So let's have a look. Caroline said, could have been a very different situation if he'd nipped someone else. Yes, absolutely. So, it's worth thinking about using a muzzle, keeping yourself safe, so that it just, as I said, it removes that tension. There was a question from yesterday where somebody asked about a dog that had confidence issues when they left their home and out and about. How do you build confidence with a dog that just instantaneously shuts down? So things to think about is, one of the things I definitely suggest to people is to consider hand feeding them. So Rachel talked about hand feeding. One of the things I strongly suggest for people to do with their dogs, whether it be a rescue, rehome, or a dog that has a confidence problem, is break the habit of feeding the dog in your home. So allocate their meals in the morning and make a habit of feeding them in different locations. So, for example, even if it means going to the front of your house, in the front garden, down the end of the road, and feeding them their meals, and then using that to interact with them. And you can play games with them, have them chase after you and have food, or chase the food itself if it's appropriate, or put it in a toy and drag it along the ground. So what you're doing is you're conditioning the dog to go out into the environment and associate it with something positive happening to them. Further to that, you're also causing the dog to be optimistic about what happens in the big wide world. If your dog has a confidence issue, parallel to that, I would also be working on confidence in your home. So you can do things like teaching them to go on uneven surfaces, teaching them to putting things in your environment that are a bit different and letting them investigate and build up confidence around them, getting them accustomed to noises and sights and sounds, and create distance away. But the big thing with dogs that lack confidence is just giving them time and always being aware of the moving at the dog's pace. Lou talked about that with her dog Chip. She allowed the dog to dictate the pace and the rhythm and the tone of each encounter, and just give them time. One of the most powerful things that you can do with a dog that lacks confidence is just stand around and do nothing. Let them just figure life out and realize it isn't so scary. So hopefully that's given you some food for thought. Let's have a look if there's any other questions. So I don't think there is. So for those of you that are interested in signing up for Relabelling Reactivity, you can, I'm going to share a link post this live, where you can go online and join the group, and you can have a look around, have a check it out, and see obviously if you want to partake in the group. The course is laid out with specific modules. I was hoping to be able to share my screen, but for some reason I can't do that on here. But what I will do is I'm going to figure out how to do that and do that tomorrow. I'll be able to share the screen and hopefully give you a little bit of a nose round where you can have a look at some of the modules and how it's laid out. The course is really, really comprehensive. It goes through all the different types of reactivity. It goes through working through core behaviors and skills to teach your dog to work on relationship and focus. It talks through how to walk them, literally, how tactical things that you can do when taking them to new environments. There's case studies that will help you understand reactivity. There is inspiring stories to help you understand reactivity. There's additional experts. We've got contributions from nutritional specialists, people that have dealt with reactivity in different circumstances and succeeded and thrived. So there's a massive amount of information. And obviously, as part of being and joining the course, you'll get access to the group, the Relabelling Reactivity Collective, which is the group that Rachel is part of, and the community for ongoing support, where you have myself, Lou and Angela as your mentors, where you're able to partake in discussions and lives, and just have us as a community to work alongside you. So I'm going to share the link if you're interested in signing up. The sign up is going to be open until next Friday. So you have a week if you're considering it. If you have any questions about the course, just come to me and ask me, and I can certainly answer them. And I hope, as I said, tomorrow I'll give you a little nose around the course. But other than that, I think that's about it. Hopefully this has been helpful. Day 4 of the Relabelling Reactivity Symposium. I will be doing a live tomorrow and then Sunday. Tomorrow I've just got to figure out the time. I will post on Facebook when that is. Same for Sunday. Probably be in the evening, probably 6-7 o'clock, depending on a couple of things, but I will definitely post. So again, if you have any questions about reactivity and you're picking this up retrospectively, post them, tag me in them, and I will help answer them for you. And as I said, tomorrow we'll give you a snoop around the course so I can figure out how to do it on StreamYard. But other than that, have a fantastic evening. As I said, I'll share a link shortly if you're considering joining the course. And I look forward to having you as part of the community. Whatever you're doing, have a great evening, everybody. See you all later.